Family and fellow soldiers, I'm the Professor, and this is the Moment of Truth. It feels like the subject of black children being targeted by these anti-black racists is emerging as something of the theme for this week. By now, everyone's seen the video. 5 years after the murder of George Floyd, the white supremacists out in Minnesota are showing that race relations in America haven't gone anywhere for a reason. Shiloh Hendrix, a white woman in Rochester, Minnesota, was caught on video hurling racial slurs at a black child, barely more than an infant. And the video's gone viral. And this Hendrix character became famous overnight, though not the way she would have liked. But of course we live in the post-racial America, as Henry Skip the Truth Gate said, so naturally this blonde bigot immediately realized that she could appeal to the white belligerence that's been resurgent in American society. So she did what so many of these other hate criminals in recent years have done. She set up a crowdfunding for herself, for the alleged purpose of protecting her family and potentially helping them to relocate. Never mind the fact that she's not under any sort of real threat, and never mind the fact that this woman really doesn't have much of a family to speak of, but since when do white supremacists care about facts or truth? But this racist pustule knew exactly what she was doing. She was appealing to all of these white supremacists out there. Hey, look at me, look at the stunt that I pulled. Why don't you go ahead and give me a pat on the back? When the video went viral, the online white supremacist mouthpieces like Tim Pool and others realized that they could also get in on the action. So far, this Shiloh woman's received over $600,000 in donations, with all of the attention she's been given by the online white supremacist sphere. She originally had a goal of only $50,000, but since then she says that her new goal is $1 million. So this goes to show that these racists understand full well what they're doing is openly monetizing their hate crimes. Now, what I want to know is, what is this white racist woman going to do with that money? Donations can often be tax exempt, but that's only under specific circumstances, like for medical emergencies or some sort of extreme situation like that. This vile creature's not trying to get any sort of medical care, and she's not even in any personal danger, obviously. She's just hanging out her tin can and asking the other racists to give her some money for having racially assailed a child. If she decides to move, it'll be her own choice, but not out of necessity. That's not someone in need. That's just a garden variety bigot taking advantage of white privilege. And the fact that she's raised so much money tells me that there's plenty of bigots who are still getting their state mental health disability checks, and this is how they've been spending the money. You know, if Elon Musk and the rest of those creeps at Doge want to actually cut down on waste, this would be a good place to start. Not only should this heifer be made to pay taxes on whatever money she's getting, but she should also be made to give an accounting of every penny of it. We should see what kind of car she winds up driving, what kind of house she moves into, and what kind of designer bags that she winds up carrying. A number of people have been comparing this woman to Kyle Rittenhouse, who also was making money off of crowdfunding after he committed his heinous crime. But if this woman thinks to herself that she's going to be some sort of Kyle Rittenhouse part 2, she might want to think twice. After all, it wasn't long before Rittenhouse found himself in dire financial straits. All of that quickie cash that he got when he was a little hero to the white right, that stuff evaporated soon enough. And as we all saw, he and his lawyers were having double knockouts fighting over the loot. This racist Hendrix woman claims to be so scared for herself and her so-called family. She's so terrified they may have to move, no doubt, to a bigger place. But don't be surprised when she decides to rear her ugly head on some right-wing nuts podcast regardless, just like Rittenhouse was doing interviews, all the while claiming that he was afraid for his safety. Yeah, he was so afraid he couldn't go anywhere at all except for all the interviews he was doing. And just like with Rittenhouse, don't be surprised when this little old money that she's getting right now all disappears. And the next video of her that we see on the internet will be her OnlyFans. And I'm sure that it hasn't skipped your notice that it's mostly these white supremacist females who are by and large the ones threatening and attacking these black children. From these racist school teachers to these racist nurses in these hospitals, you see who's leading the charge on this stuff. Now, this reprobate should have already been arrested for menacing a child and a half dozen other offenses, but so far the authorities out there are making it clear whose side they're on. Protesters have been demanding that this creep be charged, and were she a black woman hurling racial slurs at a white child, she would be. For over a year and a half now, we've had the nonstop narrative crammed down our throats that anti-Semitism is apparently completely and thoroughly out of control in America. Why, if somebody criticizes the state of Israel or shows anything other than contempt for the Palestinians, why, that is a life-threatening situation for every Jewish student on every campus around America. And that being the case, criticizing Israel is a threat requiring the country to suspend the Constitution. Meanwhile, as I've detailed for you all this week, you have black children being racially harassed, bullied, and even killed. And that's not seen as an emergency at all. Can you imagine what the white media and political response would be if this white woman was on video doing this to a child who is Jewish? Jonathan Greenblatt would be sending out press releases like so much candy. We would have every white cable news organization talking about this wall to wall, and of course the feds would be all over it. And legislators would already be saying that there needs to be a criminal statute specifically to punish people who hurl anti-Semitic slurs at Jewish toddlers on playgrounds. That's what we would have. We would have a Playground Protection Act. The current mayor of Rochester, Minnesota is also a white blonde woman named Kim Norton, who, not surprisingly, looks like an older version of this Hendrix woman. She's a Democrat, of course, same as that Jacob Fry character in Minneapolis, who is still the mayor of that city today, and who went out of his way to show solidarity with the thugs in blue from day one. And what has Kim Norton, the mayor of Rochester, Minnesota, done about this reprehensible incident? Nothing I can find so far. In fact, she hasn't even said anything. Now, had this been an anti-Semitic incident, she would already be racing to get in front of the cameras to denounce this as a hate crime, declare that Jewish children must be protected, and conclude by pledging her eternal loyalty to Benjamin Netanyahu. We'll continue with the Moment of Truth in just a moment, but first, a word from the official sponsor of Black Empowerment, Power Tools. There's no telling when something's going to come up, so make sure you carry your power tools at all times. You never know when you're going to need to bring the hammer down, or when you'll have some trash that needs to be blown away, or some obstacle that requires cutting down. Don't get caught empty-handed. Keep your hammer close by. Keep that leaf blower at the ready, and always carry your steel. Power tools. Because no matter what your day job or side hustle may be, there's no excuse for not being ready to put in some work. It's crucial to establish red lines, to make sure that those lines are clear to everybody, along with what the effects are if those lines are crossed. Speaking of people who have crossed the line, the Rochester branch of the NAACP held a so-called crowdfunder, allegedly to benefit the family of the child in this incident. They claimed that the proceeds they were collecting in this child's name were going to go toward legal support and advocacy efforts on behalf of the boy's family. Legal support? Is the kid going to court or something? And the NAACP is talking about advocacy? That's a joke, isn't it? Because the NAACP hasn't advocated for black people since forever. They've been spending all of their time being far more concerned about abortion and immigration than they have with black people. But then again, they never said they were advocating for the child because he's black, did they? When you look at the NAACP's statement, it said, quote, "Together we raised $341,484. Love wins." Well, apparently the family of the child found out that the NAACP was using this incident to do their own fundraising, in the child's name, of course. And I guess they must have told them to stop because the NAACP put out a follow-up statement saying, in response to the family's wishes, we have now closed the GoFundMe page. We stand in full solidarity with the child and his family, and with all those who believe in building a community where dignity, justice, and love prevail. Notice that nowhere does the NAACP use the word black. If they were talking about any other demographic, any other group, they would be specific about it. But when it comes to black people, well, we got to go ahead and use some deracinated language. We don't want anyone thinking that we're sticking up for black people or anything. Now, of course, the most salient part of the NAACP fiasco here is that it was the family of that child who told the NAACP to butt out. That's what happened here. The family told these guys, we don't need you, we weren't asking for your support, and you can knock off your so-called crowdfunding. If the NAACP wants to advocate for something, they can advocate for reparations. Or in this case, they can advocate for an anti-black hate crime law. That's what they can advocate for. But they weren't talking about that at all. And yet they were trying to fundraise off of this. That's what this was. And it says a lot that this younger generation is rejecting these civil rights retreads, these fossils from a bygone era. The NAACP's credibility, such as it was, lies completely and thoroughly in ruins. And they're not going to be able to hide behind black children as a way to launder their image. And I'm sure that it's not lost on anyone that the main driver that the Tim Pools and others were talking about as far as why they need to give money to this white woman is the recent incident involving this young man, Carmelo Anthony, who killed someone in self-defense. That clearly looms over this. Everyone's heard about that case. He's been released on bail pending trial, and you got certain people who are mad about that. They're saying that the judge is wrong for that. What the judge is doing is treating this young man the same way that every white person accused of harming a black person gets treated. You call that equal justice under the law. But those are three concepts that white supremacy has been at war with for 500 years. Equality, the law, and justice. But of course, the dominant society doesn't want justice at all. It wants a racial Ponzi scheme where the rules never apply to them. What we're seeing is a continuing series of racial proxy wars and proxy skirmishes that are taking place. It's important to take note of that, but understand this racist pussbag in Rochester, she knew that attacking a black child would delight racists across the spectrum and would be the perfect way to solicit money from them. It was completely understood that it was specifically her hurling racist slurs at a black child that prompted them to give her all that money, because that's the exact kind of over-the-top, outrageous anti-black racism that these white supremacists just love. That's the kind of thing they look at and go, ooh, you just went completely and thoroughly out of your way to do that mess. Oh, we gotta do something to give you a pat on the back. Incidents like this are yet another reminder of why we as black people in this country need a hate crime law specifically to protect us. And it also exposes that all of these so-called white liberal politicians and their black bootlicks like the NAACP who claim to be so concerned about equality and color blindness and equal justice under the law, whenever they see black children being attacked, not one of them says we gotta go on a war footing, we gotta go on full alert. And yet, these are the exact same people who will try to tell you and me that we need to vote for them because if we don't, well, who's going to stop all of these racists from attacking black people? You got a Democrat mayor in a Democrat city, and she ain't doing a doggone thing about this, just like Jacob Fry didn't do anything about it in Minneapolis. These people are already in charge now. They're already in authority now. And what are they doing with the authority that black voters gave to them? What they're doing is they're looking for campaign donations for themselves, and they're ignoring black people's interests, and they're staying mum whenever black people are targeted, especially black children. Now, what should the response be from an intelligent group of people when they see this kind of contempt shown to them time and time and time again? When black children are targeted, the response cannot be tepid and it cannot be moderate. Attacking children is an extreme act, and the response to these attacks on black children has to be sufficient to make sure that these threats no longer persist. We not only must stick up for black children, but we also have to stick up for their parents and those conscientious citizens who protect black children. And also to make sure that the next time some piece of trash like this Shiloh woman calls herself attacking a black child, well, somebody might make sure that her next so-called crowdfunding actually is tax deductible. Good day, and be one. I'd like to take a moment to mention some of our contributors. Gwendolyn Langston, Kareem Lawless, Tyrone Leak, Sakina Collins, and Jesse Gibson. Salute to them and thank you to everyone for listening, liking, and sharing this message. Black empowerment only exists because of you.